Alright, so Dillian Whyte has had adverse findings. That's the best way to describe it, because they haven't reported it as being a failed test per se. So we'll just call it adverse findings for now. So that's the situation with Dillian Whyte. His fight with Anthony Joshua, gone, cancelled, it's in the bin. Now, when Eddie Hearn announced that this was the situation, that the fight with Joshua will be cancelled, he didn't say that the show was gone. He's obviously kind of said more information to follow. I'll just get a couple of quotes up here. There's some people saying it's unclear what's happening, but I'm seeing a report here from Dan Raphael, the picture of health that he is, that Eddie Hearn is reportedly now looking for a replacement opponent for Anthony Joshua so that he can still fight this coming Saturday, even though Dillian Whyte, the original opponent, won't be the opponent. They don't want to cancel the whole card. They don't want Joshua to have to sit and wait until maybe January next year for Deontay Wilder. They want to get him out and at least have a run out. Now, that I understand that. I definitely do. And obviously with Joshua, with Eddie Hearn, it's not like the Eubank Smith situation in a sense of Eubank's not his fighter. It's not having to make weight and stuff like that. Joshua is his main fighter. He's not the one that's had the issues with VADA. So he obviously wants to get Joshua out. Joshua still makes a lot of money, and obviously they want to still put this show on. Obviously they want to get eyes on the zone. They want to get subscriptions over. Joshua brings that. So it makes sense that they want to get this, they want to have the show still going. Who would you get over the course of a week that will go in there with Joshua, and that if they try and keep a pay-per-view could still be a pay-per-view worthy fight? The name I'm hearing a lot of people mention now is Gerald Washington. And, I said that I thought he probably would have been one of the first guys Joshua would have fought in his comeback, because he's not particularly dangerous. He isn't the most durable. He doesn't have the most heart. And I actually, when they announced he'd be fighting Chisora, I was like, well, if this was prime Chisora, he would make light work of Gerald Washington. He really would. I mean, that pressure would absolutely just overwhelm Washington. They obviously are still officially announced the fight, but he is obviously one of the front runners. Now, if they'd done Gerald Washington versus Joshua back in April, and Gerald Washington had a proper camp, I still wouldn't be giving him a prayer against Anthony Joshua. I wouldn't be. But I would think, okay, maybe he could be a little bit fiddly for a round or two. If you're talking about, this fight was only announced, Wednesday? Him against Chisora. So how much notice did he or Chisora really have? Probably not much. So he will probably be going in there, probably not even 60%. Do I really? Well, look, with Joshua, it's a case of gauging where he's at. And we would have gauged it against Dillian Whyte. We're not probably going to really gauge it against Gerald Washington, just stemming from the fact that I don't think we're going to get Gerald Washington firing on all cylinders. God forbid they do Chisora. I know the rationale, a lot of people are saying that, why not do Chisora? Chisora get the payday and, put eyes on it. Chisora's last fight, he took a hell of a beating against Tyson Fury. I don't want to see him get another beating. I'd rather he not fight at all. I can understand kind of why they're doing Gerald Washington, because you would still favour Chisora, and at least if he wants to go out with a win, fair enough. But just please, God, no, because he's not sounding the best. And I wouldn't like to see him go in there with Joshua. And especially if Joshua's looking to box more, because Chisora's not hard to hit. If he's getting hit repeatedly for 8, 9, 10 rounds again, I just don't want to see that. I really, truly don't want to see that. At least with Washington, he's not taking as many beatings. He's been stopped a few times, but Chisora's taken some serious shellackings in there. I wouldn't like to see that. There is obviously the mention of Dempsey McKean. Now, Dempsey McKean was originally an opponent. I think it was before they announced Jermaine Franklin, that there was talk of Dempsey McKean. And I was saying at the time, look, he's not a great opponent, but for a comeback fight, he'll do. He's undefeated. And I wouldn't mind that fight necessarily. The only issue there is, obviously, he's meant to be fighting Filip Hrgovic. What would that mean for Filip Hrgovic? Now, a lot of people are also saying, and look, I'm going to just come out and say it, I would absolutely love it. I would, as a fan, because I'm speaking as a fan, I would love so much if they did do Joshua versus Hrgovic. Take my money. Seriously, take my money. If they kept it on pay-per-view, go for it. Seriously, take my money. It's a great fight. It really is, because Hrgovic is a top heavyweight. against Joshua, a heavyweight on the come up, but on his day is still a top heavyweight. So I think that would be a great fight. But that's, as a fan, I have to look at it from the promoter's point of view as well. And it makes no sense to do Anthony Joshua versus Filip Hrgovic as a promoter, especially if you've got Deontay Wilder lined up. You know, Joshua, when he made that tweet a couple of months ago, it was an Instagram post saying that, you know, not ideal, I won't be back in the ring till December, but everything has a plan. A lot of people speculated, and rightfully so, that it was because that this Wilder fight was in the pipeline, the Saudis wanted it, everyone wanted this fight to go ahead, and they didn't want to risk Joshua in the summer against someone and potentially beat him. Now, obviously, they relented on that because Dillian Whyte was announced as the opponent. We all thought that, I certainly, if the fight had been happening, I would have been picking Joshua by knockout. I think the majority would have been picking Joshua by knockout because they saw Dillian Whyte, a lot of us did, as, yeah, he's live, but he's not going to go in and cause a seismic shift, we wouldn't have thought. Hrgovic, on the other hand, is very live. I mean, he's unbeaten, for God's sakes. He's the mandatory for the IBF. He's a very good heavyweight. If you've got a Wilder fight lined up, you would have to be just stark raving mad as a promoter to put that fight on. Now, if Eddie Hearn did do it, credit to him, and boy, has that taken me by surprise. That's what I'd be thinking. I'd be thinking delighted in one sense, but I'd be like, whoa, you've got a lot of confidence there. I just can't see them doing that. I can't see them doing that. I'd love it if they did it, but you have to look at it from a promoter's point of view, and you're thinking there's millions and millions on the line again for Joshua versus Wilder. Millions to be gained. And what is the point in putting him in with Filip Hrgovic? Which, yeah, it'll get Joshua mandatory for a crack at Alexander Usyk. He's already lost twice to Usyk, been schooled twice. And, you know, if he gets beaten, well then, you know, Wilder fight, see you later. You're pretty much back to square one. You know, so for me, that just doesn't make sense. I'd love to see it, but I can't see it, if you know what I mean. In terms of other opponents, I'm only talking about the guys who are on the card. Obviously, I'm not going to mention Johnny Fisher. He's only a pup in terms of, you know, where he is in his heavyweight career. You know, he's only a little, he's not even out the starting blocks yet, so I won't mention him. In terms of who you would get on a week's notice, I mean, you'd have to really get the checkbook out, but who could you really get on a week's notice? You know, I know with the Kubrat Pulev situation, when he pulled out on short notice, I think it was 10 days before the fight with an injury, you had Takam waiting in the wings, and he was kept in reserve. So that's different. I don't think they had anybody in reserve for this fight, or if they did, you know, I mean, we heard no names or anything like that. So I don't really know what they're going to do. Washington is the name they're talking about, which, you know, look, Washington is an easy enough fight for Joshua, regardless whether he was in shape or had more time to prepare or not. I think, though, if we'd had a Washington who, you know, had about 8 weeks, he might give a little bit of a more account of himself. You know, at the end of the day, I just want to see an opponent go in there and fight back. I'd hate for them to announce, right, Gerald Washington's going to fight Anthony Joshua instead. So the show still goes ahead. It's still pay-per-view. And the first solid shot that Joshua lands or grazes Washington is like, yeah, I'm down. See you later. Where's my money? Oh, yeah, there's my money. See you later, lads. I'm gone. I don't want to. I'd like to see Joshua at least, you know, get an idea of where he's at, if you know what I mean. That's what I'd like to see. That's wishful thinking, because with a week's notice, even if they got someone else in, how good a shape are they really going to be in? You know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Like Charles Martin took that fight against Big Baby Anderson at short notice, gave a good account of himself. That's more so an exception rather than the rules. Normally a short notice gig, especially this short notice, it can be very anticlimactic. And Joshua's history with short notice, I mean, remember the last time something like this happened, Big Farmer Miller failed. Right, who do we get? We get Andy Ruiz in. Should be straightforward. Oh boy, it wasn't. We all know what happened there. So, you know, that's the situation. Look, I reckon it's probably going to be Washington. I wouldn't be shocked if it is. Whatever he's being paid, they'll add a 0 to that, and I would imagine they'll do it. Should it still be pay-per-view? Certainly, I think if it's Washington, I think that the zone will be well advised to just bring it back down to standards, and if anyone has already forked out for the pay-per-view, they should be refunded. That's what I think they should be doing, or at least, you know, if they could do pay-per-view as a once-off, you know, for the guys who just want to watch the fight and don't want a subscription, they should do that. As for the regular fans who pay their subscription, it should just be part of your package. That's what I think they should do. I don't know how feasible that is, But I think that's what they should do, considering the fact that it won't be Dillian Whyte. Obviously, if it's Hrgovic, different story, take my money. But as I said, if you put a promoter's hat on, you just cannot see them doing that fight. I can't certainly see them doing that fight. If they did, then I'm wrong. And I'd be very happy to admit I'm wrong. But I just can't see it. I really can't. It's too big a risk. I don't even know if I'd pick Joshua over Hrgovic, to be honest with you. I probably would, but it's a 50-50. You have to pick 'em fight. And I just don't know why you take that risk if you've got a massive big money fight with Wilder lined up for the end of this year, start next year. It just seems like a completely irrational decision to do that. That's just from me looking at it from a promoter's eyes. Obviously as a fan's eyes, we all want to see it, but we don't always get what we want in this world of boxing, unfortunately. So that's my thoughts on the situation. Obviously, we will keep a close eye on the whole Dillian Whyte situation. I will wait for more of this to come out. Obviously, yeah, we wait and see what happens. Do you know something, right? I'm not going to go off on a tangent or anything like that, but when the Conor Ben Eubank Jr. fight was happening, or in the build-up to it, there was always this nagging feeling. I don't know if other people felt it, but there was always this nagging feeling. We're not going to see that fight. There was just that weird feeling around that fight. And other fights as well, like Joshua Miller, it almost seemed, I kind of want to say, too good to be true. Not in terms of, you're talking about the best fighting the best, but the build of everything, it all just seemed like, oh wow, but you never really envisioned the fight happening, if that makes sense. With this fight, there was none of that. You kind of thought, okay, yeah, this is going to happen, and without failure. And then this happens. It's real weird, sometimes ahead of time, you can kind of, like, for some reason, when Povetkin was meant to fight Wilder, 21st of May 2016 would have been the date in Russia, in Moscow. I was looking forward to it in a sense of it was announced, it was going to be on Box Nation, but I never felt like I am going to see these two in the ring, if that makes sense. And then, of course, obviously he failed. I think that was on the week of the fight, or maybe it was just before the fight week, maybe it was about 10 days before. But there was always that kind of feeling around it. It's weird, call it intuition, I don't know. But I always had that kind of feeling. With this, you didn't get any of that, so that's why it's a bit more of a surprise in some ways. Although saying that, Dillian Whyte's failed. This is the third time he's had issues with drug testing. So is anyone really surprised at this point? I mean, a tree is known by its fruits at the end of the day. It'd be like Big Farmer Miller failing again. Everyone would just be like, he's failed again. Is anyone surprised? So, yeah, that's my thoughts on all this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Who do you think, Joshua? Who do you want as well to see Joshua in there with this coming week? But who do you think it'll be? That's the question. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed the video, people. Smash the like button if you could. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. For now, lads and lassies, I'll leave you with that. Peace.